Hi, this is Maggie from Crafts the Charm. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm so glad you're here. What I'm going to do in today's video is update my outdoor wooden wall hanging for the summer. But this is a piece that you can make without the outdoor wooden wall hanging part. So in this video, I'm just showing you a quick overview of how I made that base out of old fence pieces, but I'll include a link to a video as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just remove the star that I had put on it for the winter. Now this has been hanging on a covered porch, but I feel like it did hold up pretty well in the weather. And I had wired that to the back of each of those spokes or points of this wooden wall hanging. So I'm just going to untwist the wire and I'm ready to go. Now, when I did update this around Christmas time, I painted it with Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Adirondack white, and then I sanded it back and still felt it didn't look weathered enough, so I also brushed a little bit of brown over the grain and on the edges. I think I used Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Java. And for this project, I think I'm going to leave it weathered like that, but you might prefer a very crisp look if you have a wooden fence piece like this. So in that case, I would recommend painting it with the Adirondack paint. Now the next part of this is a 14-inch wreath form. And the next component is these chair spindles. I rescued a chair from the curb. It was a broken chair. And I took it apart with a mallet. And I have these 6 spindles. So what I'm going to do is put them through the wreath form so that they're between the white pieces of the wooden background piece. So I'm just poking them under one metal piece and over the adjacent metal pieces and sort of meeting them up in the center. And once I have those positioned so that they will be between the wooden pieces of my background fence piece, I'm going to wrap the wreath form with this nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. These are 9.5-foot lengths of nautical rope. What I'm going to do is attach the rope to the wreath form with a little bit of jute twine. I'm trying to conserve the rope as much as I can. So what I'm doing with the jute twine is just tying sort of an X, wrapping an X around the rope and attaching it to one of those metal pieces of the wreath that will be on the inside when I wrap it. Around each of the spokes, I'm going to do an X, and then I'm just going to start wrapping straight around. Now, because the diameter of the wreath form obviously in the middle is smaller than the diameter on the outside, I am going to periodically layer over the inside but not layer on the outside. And I'm trying to do that in a symmetrical way. So I'm doing that around the wooden pieces of the chair, and then I'm doing it between, like right in the middle, between 2 of the wooden pieces of the chair. And I'm only trying to do that sort of layering in the middle in those places. Once I reach the end of a piece of rope, I'm going to do the same thing with some jute twine, tying it to one of the metal pieces on the inside, and then tying the next piece to a metal piece on the inside with jute twine, and continuing to wrap around. Now, I don't think the wreath form was meant to have pieces of wood stuck through it, so in one place it snapped. And I'm just going to use a little bit of this Gorilla duct tape and tape that together. And it's not perfect, but it worked just fine. Now, once I reached the end, I turned the piece over and I tied the end of my last piece of rope to a piece of rope that was already wrapped around using some jute twine. And then I whipped the end of that rope. I don't think that's necessary, but just to prevent it from fraying. Now what I have here is the bottom of a soda can. That original star that I had on here that I took off at the very beginning, that was made out of pieces of soda cans. And when I cut the soda can apart, I'm left with this circle for the bottom. So I just used a little bit of alcohol on this to remove the printing. And now what I'm going to do is drill holes around the edge of this. Now I'm cutting pieces of a stiff florist's wire and poking them through the holes, and my original thought was that I would wrap them around the wooden chair spokes, and that was the first thing that I did here. But what I ultimately decided was I needed to sandwich these pieces of the chair between two of those soda cans, so you'll see that adjustment in a moment. Now I would like to paint that to look like brass, so I'm going to begin with this folk art metallic paint, and the color is bronze metal. And I'm going to put 3 coats of that on this little piece of the soda can. The first coat's going to look terrible, but if you let it dry completely and add another coat, you'll be fine. Now here's my next soda can piece, and you can see I've already drilled the holes in it. Now the first one I had oriented the outside of the can up. This one I'm going to orient so that it's basically sandwiching, so the outside of the can will be down. The insides of the can are going to be pointing towards each other. I don't know if that's important or not, but I'm also going to paint this one with the bronze metal paint, just so if you can see any little piece of it, it will look like it's the same color as the top piece. And I gave that 2 coats as well. So then I untwisted all the wire from around the pieces of the chair and tried to poke them up through this new piece. And once I had done that, tried to pull it tight all the way around and twisted it on this side of the 2 pieces. But I did this on camera, so I didn't do a great job. I always feel like I'm in a rush when I'm doing things on camera, and it's also hard to see things. So one of them came undone, and later I had to fix it with a needle nose pliers that made it a little bit easier for me to get at it. Now, I always feel like if you want something to really look like metal, you should give it highlights and lowlights. In this case, I am only going to do lowlights. I don't think the highlights are quite as necessary. For the lowlights, I'm going to use this folk art multi-surface paint in chocolate brown, and I have mixed that with some water. So I am just going to dab that lightly over the piece and concentrate it in the places that I think would tend to be shadowed or grimy. And I then dabbed it a little bit with a towel just because I had made it a little too wet and it was running a little bit. It just looks so much more like real brass once you've put those lowlights in. Now I have this old nautical chart that a friend gave me, somebody who works on a boat, and you can see I've cut pieces out of it before, and that was for decor. I just think that this piece would look a lot more fun if it had a piece of map behind it. So I'm just lining it up with a piece of the map that looks interesting, and tracing around that with a pencil and cutting it out. Now, I would like this to be a little bit more blue, so I'm using this Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Cascade, and I've mixed it with water because I do want all the features of that map to come through, and I'm just brushing it over the white parts. And And now with that all dry, I'm figuring out where the top of this piece is, because it's not all that symmetrical. So I have to make sure that my chair spokes are in the right place, and then I can orient the map so it's right side up. And I'm going to attach that to the rope using just some straight pins. Now to attach this to the wooden piece, I'm going to use some silver florist's wire. This is a very heavy-duty piece of wire. The reason I'm using silver is because it's not that visible against the white. But what I've done is wrapped it around the wreath form and sort of tucked it into the rope, so you can't see it at all around the wreath form. And especially since I'm working with it off camera, I apologize for that. And then I just wrapped it around the top of my wooden piece. I then stapled that wire down to the back of the wooden piece. It's not going to be as much fun trying to redo this for the next season because I'm going to have to pull those staples out. And if that doesn't hold well enough, I will just do that again for the other pieces of the fence. I'll attach it around several pieces of the fence and staple it on. Now I'm going to take that bronze metal paint and I'm just going to put it on the ends of all of my chair pieces. You can see that the ends are raw wood, and that's where, of course, it's stuck into the seat of the chair. So I think this will look a lot nicer and more finished if I just paint those the same bronze color that I have in the middle. And because this is wood and it has some underlying texture, I don't think it's necessary to put any highlights or lowlights on this. I think it looks fine the way it is. Finally, with all the bronze paint completely dried, I am going to put a layer of matte Mod Podge over all of the places that I painted with the bronze paint. And here it is. I'm really pleased with it. I'd love to know what you think and what changes you might make if you were going to make it. Please tell me in the comments. The most expensive part of this for me was the rope, because everything else was something I already had or found by the curb. If you're looking for some of these items like old fence pieces or old chairs, I recommend looking on Facebook Marketplace or seeing if there is some sort of exchange in your neighborhood for free goods. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.